Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 11 at Laurel Park on Saturday. It's Jim McKay Maryland Million Day, and race 11 is the Maryland Million Classic, the feature. $150,000, state-sired 3 and up, going a mile and an eighth. Before we take a look at the entries, remember, DRFTV viewers have a chance to get 10% off all DRF past performances. Shop now by accessing the QR code and use the coupon code DRFTV10. Here's the field for the Maryland Million Classic. We have got 11 in the body of the race. 12 and 13 are also eligibles. The 12 and 13 get in only if this field scratches down to under 8. It's a pretty wide open race, Mike. 9-2 is your morning line favorite, feeling woozy.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows who's going to be the morning line or the favorite at post time, Dan. It feels kind of wide open. The morning line maker didn't really take a stand here, Dan. A 9-2, a 5-1, and then, I don't know, 5 or 6 6-1 shots on this morning line.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. I don't know who the favorite's going to be, but I do have a feeling his pace is going to be fast. And one of the speeds is the 6, Hit the Road Jack, who skipped around the bull ring at Timonium last time out, winning a state-sired allowance. He's quick. Brilliant Ice is stretching out from a tough post and should show a little bit of speed. Ain't the Beer cold when he is at his best, can go to the front. But what kind of form is he in now? Who knows?
Yeah, you just highlighted the 3 horses that I thought were sort of the main pace players in here. Hit the Road Jack. His 2 best races are when they used his speed. If they're going to run him in this race, I don't know why they wouldn't use it here. Hit the Road. I mean, Ain't the Beer cold? The 7, Dan, isn't. He just seems like the kind of horse where if he doesn't make the lead, he's just not at his best.
There should be a fast pace, and Mugatu, who's taking a class drop after facing some top 3-year-olds out of town, he's a late runner that would benefit. Note the LP flag over his chiclet. Mugatu is the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We'll kick things off with a number 1, Little Lance, who has the potential to work out a pace-tracking, ground-saving trip. Another horse stretching out in distance. Didn't really see an excuse, though, last time out in that recent state-sired allowance. He faced some good sprinters, Celtic Contender, Doc Linkus, but he was in a good spot over a speed-friendly track and tired.
Yeah, I don't see it with this horse. He's a big price on the morning line. Kind of seems like he really should be. He's just a little too slow. I mean, I guess if you're looking for a silver lining, Dan, since he was claimed by these connections, he is 2 for 2 around 2 turns on dirt. So he's got that going for him, but he just looks a little slow to me.
Crossland is the number 2, and he's a solid horse on turf, and he's a solid horse on dirt. And we're going to watch his most recent race where he was washed off of the turf, going a mile and an eighth at Laurel, and he set off the pace in this race, and he's going to grind on to finish second. He'll end up being placed first via disqualification. This is kind of Crossland, though. He really doesn't have a lot of burst, and a lot of times he'll settle for a minor award.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's, listen, they're going to give him this win here. I wonder if he was even going to go by this horse if he wasn't bothered at the end there. It seemed like maybe he was hanging a little bit. And then when you start picking through his form anyway, Dan, I mean, he's got that one race in a 40 claimer back last December. I guess that figure, he ran an 87 winning that. I guess that would give him some kind of a chance in here. His other races don't seem like they make him a contender.
Talk about disqualifications. The 3 Market Maven finished first in this race last year and then was taken down in a somewhat controversial DQ. He hasn't reached the winner's circle since. His most recent start was 2 at Parks. It's the Stormcat Stakes, and he kind of just plugs along towards the inside. He faced a pretty solid field, but it's not like he's finishing with a tremendous amount of verve. He runs third in here throughout the last race on turf, but he is a tactical sort that likes this track, and I just think he's better than his recent form indicates.
Yeah, I sort of agree with all that stuff. I mean, it's one of those situations where even though he hasn't won a race or hasn't finished first in a race, I guess you can't say he won this race last year, but he hasn't finished first in a race in a really long time. He's just paired up 87 buyers in his last 2 dirt starts. Those figures will give him a chance in here. I love his running style. And I also like that he's repeating that pattern, Dan. Stormcat to Alphabet Soup right into this race. I know the Alphabet Soup was on turf this year. It was rained off last year, but they're sort of repeating that pattern that got him to run maybe the best race of his life in this race last year.
Mosler Time is the number 4, and while he'll stretch out to a mile and an eighth for the first time, this horse has blossomed since being stretched out to a rout of ground, and trainer Cal Lynch told me earlier this week that he thinks that's been the key to this horse's success. Here's his most recent race. It's a first-level allowance, and he got a very good trip up close to a moderate pace. He takes over at will, though, and he just strides away from this field, far and away the best Beyer speed figure of his career, and if he runs back to this number, he's going to be very tough.
Yeah, he's very impressive winning this race, and it's in relatively fast time too. It's a race that's just going to make him a contender in here. He is going to face a tougher field this time, Dan. He is 2 for 2 around 2 turns in his life, and I appreciate that he's lightly raced, and maybe we just haven't even seen his best start yet. He moves forward one more time, and I guess he's tough in here. But it's a tougher race for him, and it's your call what kind of price you want to take on him, because I suspect he's going to be a pretty short price in here.
You mentioned market Maven repeating pattern that led to a successful performance in this race last year. The 5 Dolice Vita is going to also try the second off the layoff angle that resulted in him running 4th at big odds in this race. They tried him sprinting off the bench last time out. He was facing a good field of sprinters, again, over a speed track where they basically ran 1-2 around, and he finished up okay. I'm sure it's the prep they were looking for, and he does well at a distance of ground. He's just not a horse that's really a prolific winner.
Yeah, I didn't like that about him. He's another horse that I kind of respected, earlier, end of last year, earlier this year. He really was in really good form. He wasn't winning any of those races, Dan, but he was running competitive figures. He has a good running style. He's second off the layoff now as they stretch him out. So maybe you'll get his, one of his really good races. That would give him a chance to at least hit the board in this race.
Hit the road, Jack finally put it all together at Timonium, going a mile. This was the first time he'd stretched out in a while. As a matter of fact, he's 3 for 3 lifetime at a mile or greater. Timonium is Timonium, though. It's a bull ring. Some horses love it, some horses don't. I call it the Kentucky Downs of dirt. And Hit the Road Jack, even though he's speedy, even though he's got upside potential, and even though he's unbeaten going a route of ground, has to prove to me, even at a price, that he's not a bull ring move up.
I'm going to look at him the exact same way and not really going to add anything to that, Dan. He also has to take Lasix off for this. We'll see if he can repeat that last one.
Ain't the Beer Cold is a really cool horse. He's been around for a long time, and Kenny Cox has nursed this guy through some feet problems. They put glue on shoes, and it seems like Ain't the Beer Cold has gotten a lot better. He got that stakes win via disqualification in the Maryland Million. He won the Native Dancer earlier this year when he gets to the lead. His subsequent starts have not been good. He's been hammered in his last few races. He hasn't shown that early zest that he usually shows. I'm assuming Toledo's going to try to send him here to make the lead. In the current form he's in, 12-1, I guess that's fair, but he's got a lot to prove.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's hard to take off of what he's been showing recently. I'm still a little bit afraid of this horse, though, Dan, because I'm kind of with you. I mean, it does sort of feel like, at least at this stage of the game, where if he doesn't make the lead, he's just not the same horse. And I got to believe that his connections realize that. And they're just going to send him here. And if he clears off on this field into the first turn, they might have a pretty tough time catching him. I could see using this horse somewhere.
Feeling Woozy is the tepid 9-2 morning line favorite, stretching out off a couple of sprints. He's only raced a mile and an eighth in his career, and it's worth noting that he won that race by the length of the stretch. I will caution anyone, though, that was a major inside speed bias track at Laurel, and I wonder if that race just was flattered by the way the racetrack was playing. He hasn't run back to that race yet. He's been consistent. I guess the stretch out is okay for him. I'm not sure I'd take him as the favorite.
I definitely wouldn't take him as the favorite. I don't think I would take him as the second or third choice in this race. And we'll see how they bet him. Again, he has that one race that obviously makes him tough. I don't know that anything else that he's ever done in his life makes him that interesting in this spot. And they're going to stretch him back out for this race, but I'm not sure that's going to work. And I just don't see him making the lead in this race.
Mugatu, the number 9, if you just look at his lifetime record of 1 for 17, it really doesn't stand out. But these connections have put him in some impossible spots. The Bluegrass, the Preakness, and then he's running 4 open stakes races since. His most recent start, he had no chance in that race, running against Ohio Derby winner Batten Down, at least the way that race was run, where Batten Down wired the field. Mugatu's getting some serious class relief. I must admit, I'm not his biggest fan, but he's going to get a setup, and he's got a good chance against this group.
I think those things are probably all true. I would just wait and see what kind of price he is. It feels like he could come down off the 6-1, Dan. He's not my kind of horse. I would never take any kind of a short price on him. He's 0 for 8 in his life on dirt. And I recognize that they just run him in one impossible start after another. But I'll, throw it back to you on this, and I just want to get your take on this, because there is that one race, Laurel, this distance back in August off the turf, and I understand that he got wired that day. That was hardly a compelling race overall, a compelling performance from this horse. And wasn't that a race where he's at least supposed to be competitive?
That's the race where he's supposed to be competitive. He kind of made a move and he flattened out. And I've had this weird sensation, and I could be proven wrong Saturday. I wonder if he actually wants a little bit shorter than a mile and an eighth. A one-turn mile in a race full of speed might work for Mugatu, where he could really kick late, but he still does fit in this race. And I still think against this sort of caliber of competition, he's interesting if he stays at that price. The 10 is Brilliant Ice, and he missed his scheduled prep race, so he's coming into this race fresh off of a 2-month layoff. The distance is really the major question, because this horse is coming into the race in fine form. Here's his most recent start, an allowance race going 7/8 of a mile. He showed early speed. He's going to be passed by the favorite Irish Exit, and it looks like he's in hot water, but he's really game to re-rally along the inside. He just gets beat by a nose. He's extremely competitive from a buyer's standpoint. He does have some early speed, but this distance is a big question mark.
Yeah, that was my big question about him too. And being outside, I don't know how many options they really have here, Dan. I don't know if they're going to come out of there running or just take him back. And neither one of them, seems like a very good option to me. I respect that he's in good form, or he was before that little bit of a layoff. But like you, not really sure he wants to go this far.
Van Scholars is another horse that folks in Maryland are very familiar with. He seems to dance all these dances, and he just missed in the Native Dancer when wired by Ain't the Beer Cold back in April. He then ran a string of good races without winning against Allowance Company. His last 2 starts, maybe, though, are a little bit disappointing. That fined 2 starts back, an off-turf race where he really didn't fire, and then last time out in an allowance race where he finished a well-beaten 3rd. I think Van Scholars on his best day fits with these horses. I wonder what kind of trip he could pull from out there.
I'm worried about the trip he can get from out there too, and I guess I'm a little worried about his last 2 starts too, because they're not that great. But the stuff that he was doing, I know that he won first back in January, first time out for this trainer, and he hasn't won since. But his form felt like it really held up, Dan. He's got races that make him a real contender in here. Listen, I don't think I'd take the 6-1 on him, but I think he might drift off that. And if he does, I would use this horse.
12 and 13 are also eligibles and need a lot of scratches in order to participate. Top pick time for the Maryland Million Classic. I'm going with the number 10 in here, Brilliant Ice. I think that Brilliant Ice might be able to get out of the gate and work out a good trip. If he could sit off Hit the Road Jack, and that's a big if. He's got to hustle out of the gate and find position. But I think there's a chance he might inherit the lead. The problem is that last 1/8 of a mile or more.
Yeah, I like his recent form too. And I got him in there, Dan. I just couldn't quite talk myself into putting him on top. I didn't have a real strong opinion in here. I'm going to take the 3 Market Maven. Ship him back in here. See if he can get a little redemption after losing this race to the Stewards last year.
Mike's going Market Maven. I'm going Brilliant Ice. It's the Maryland Million Classic. Exciting afternoon at Laurel Park on Saturday. Good luck. Hey, buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner. And just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.